Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans. Welcome into the Bleav in Arizona Cardinals podcast. We're here joined with Chris Streveler, aka the Leveler, former Cardinals quarterback, former Blue Bombers quarterback, former Jets quarterback as well, and overall great guy. Chris, it's good to have you here on the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me, man. Having a good day.
Sounds awesome. So let's talk a little bit now. There's been some past interviews that we've had. Our sister show, the Rise Up See Red podcast, had you back on in January. So for those of you guys who didn't get a chance to listen to that show, go back. There's a lot that Chris covers about his time in the NFL, his time in the CFL. We'll do kind of a quick flyover of some of that. Let's talk a little bit about just your love for football and for the game. Like, how did you get started in actually playing football as a kid, growing up from your time there up into going to Minnesota and going up to school in the Dakotas?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing football when I was 8 years old. So grew up, started with flag, and then went into tackle the next year. And I played other sports growing up. But as I got a little bit older, I realized that I loved hitting people and I loved that aspect of the sport. So kind of stuck with that. As I got into high school, really started to transition over to playing quarterback. When I first started playing, I was running back, linebacker, just an athletic kid, just running around making plays. Always wanted to go to the NFL, always wanted to go Division I. So when I got to high school, I quickly realized that quarterback was going to be my best option to do that. So transitioned over to quarterback. Really had to work to get scholarship offers. I only had two my senior year, so South Dakota State and then Minnesota. And I ended up committing to Minnesota pretty much right away when they gave me the offer. So it was exciting to get to go play in the Big Ten. Kind of struggled to get on the field there. Was there for 3 years, started one game, played a little bit, ended up actually transitioning over to receiver and tight end, running back, just kind of doing a little bit of everything my final year there. Then I graduated after 3 years and transferred to University of South Dakota and played my final two there. Helped get that program situated in the right direction. When I first got there, they had never had a winning season as a Division I program. And by the time my senior year wrapped up, we made the playoffs, won a playoff game, and I was fortunate enough to be first team All-American, runner-up for the Player of the Year, all this good stuff. So that's kind of my football background, and then jumped up to the CFL and then down to Arizona.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your time with the Blue Bombers. Obviously, that was the time where you won a championship with the Blue Bombers. That's where a lot of the memes that kind of took place with you started, at least for the most part, with just the, I think Senior Jess Root called it the Ryan Fitzpatrick look, everything. Let's talk a little bit about just some of the differences. So some of my background, I worked for a while for the Arena Football League for the Arizona Rattlers team that was there. Very, very different sport from American football. Also a very different sport from Canadian football. It's much more precision passing. It's a lot smaller. It's like half the size of the American football field, whereas Canadian football is larger as far as for a field size. What are some of the differences, at least between CFL and NFL, for just a lot of us Americans who really don't know necessarily a lot about CFL?
Yeah. Well, number one, it's a shame that more Americans don't know about the CFL. It's a very exciting game. It's wide open. So you talk about field dimensions. It's a 65-yard wide field. 110 yards long. That will be changing next year. They're making some changes to the rules up there, but as it stands right now, it's 110 yards long. Field goal posts are at the front of the goal line because it's 20-yard end zones. Again, that will be changing after next year. They're overhauling a lot of these rules, but the point is, it's a very exciting game. It's very up-tempo, shorter play clocks, dynamic motions with guys being able to waggle towards the line of scrimmage and being able to shift and move a lot more. Only 3 downs, so you go out on the field and you're 2 and out. That's a 40-second flip, and defense is back out there. So it's very fast-paced. There's also some clock management rules that change when you're within 3 minutes. So the clock will stop while the chains reset after every play inside of 3 minutes, which allows teams two things. Number one, to be able to come back from bigger deficits than you'd see in the NFL. And number two, you're not really able to just sit on the ball and run out the clock like you'd see in the NFL. You're up 10 points with 3 minutes left in the NFL. You're probably going to win that game. I've seen plenty of teams lose and win games being up and down 10 points in the last 3 minutes of the CFL game. So, that's how I always sell people on it, tell them about it, is just, number one, it's the summertime. There's no football on. We're all itching for football. So why don't you go click on a CFL game? And number two, I think you'll be very impressed and surprised with how dynamic and wide open the game is.
Yeah, I know. That's something, at least with the time that I had with the arena football, everything was built around passing the ball where you couldn't rush more than 4-on-4. So it'd be beat your man 1-on-1. You have a guy, like you said, who lines up in motion. So there's a lot more waggles that would go through and that would allow guys to get a head start. That's the same sort of area. There's also a 12th man, at least, that pops up. So you get an extra receiver, extra defensive back. So, like you said, it's a little bit closer to the air raid when you're talking about a lot of the schematic aspects, because it's going to be tons of pushing the ball down the field. You're just basically airing it all out. Talk a little bit more about some of the scheme differences, because you basically were able to go from college to the CFL to the NFL. What's the biggest thing as far as when you're attacking some different coverages or when you're having to kind of face some of the pass rush? I know that it's a lot different as far as you just have to get the ball out so much quicker in the NFL because the defenses are able to disguise a lot differently. What's some of the different scheme differences that you're able to experience as a quarterback?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say you have to get the ball out quicker, but what I always tell people from a scheme perspective is the NFL is much more timing based,
Mhm.
smaller field,
Right.
more condensed. Guys are maybe a little bit faster, although I would be the guy that stands on the table and said there's not that big of a skill difference when you're talking about, most of the guys. Now, you obviously have these outlier guys that are the best in the game and they're getting paid a lot of money because of that. But when you talk about the bulk of the roster, I think that there's a lot of players in the CFL that could compete to make NFL roster, and it's just about being at the right place at the right time, to be quite honest with you. And there's been a lot of other guys who have played in the NFL that have gone to the CFL and had similar feedback about how impressive the athletes are. But again, going back to what I was saying, the NFL is timing based, and the CFL is a lot more spacing based. You can play the numbers game. It's a bigger field, so being able to attack pockets in defense is important, and being able to layer routes behind zone coverage backers and things like that. Whereas in the NFL, it's one hitch, two hitch, three hitch, check down. Like you have to stay pretty consistent with the timing, especially if we're talking about the Cardinals and we're talking about the West Coast offense, knowing how Nathaniel Hackett coaches things. It's very, very strict on a timing basis based on where you are in your drop, where you are in your hitches. So that's just one of the differences in terms of being a quarterback. But again, I can't emphasize enough how high level the players in the CFL are. And I'm the first guy to tell you that a lot of guys are talented enough to be in the NFL, but a lot of making it to the NFL for most guys is being at the right place at the right time. And for a lot of guys up there, it just didn't happen for whatever reason.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit. You were one of those guys who was in the right place at the right time when it came to Arizona. They bring you in at least in the 2000 and I believe 2020 season, I believe originally.
Yep.
And you were there from 2020 to 2021 with Arizona, and you got the opportunity to be able to be in the backup spot and being able to actually even play in the NFL for a little bit, which a lot of people I think don't realize because we spend so much time looking at, oh, this guy didn't get to 1,000 yards in the NFL. Oh, what a terrible season for them. We don't realize how difficult a lot of it actually is to be able to make it with all of the mercenaries and the best athletes in the world all being on that spot. Talk a little bit about with when you're saying in the right place at the right time, what was kind of some of your experience with that, and then some of your experience in Arizona as well?
So look, when I talk about being at the right place at the right time, there's that, but then there's also being ready to take advantage. So what I found myself in Arizona was a very unique situation. You talk about the 2020 season, if we can all rewind our brains a little bit and go back to COVID time, very unique time to be trying to make an NFL roster. We didn't have OTAs. We jumped right into training camp. So it was important at that point. And for me, just really finding ways to showcase my skill set, whether that be special teams or drill work, or that's really how I carved an opportunity out of what I was given. And the coaches saw the effort that I was bringing, the attitude that I had, and they is as an athlete, and this applies to college athletes as well, but also NFL guys, trying to make decisions on where to go, is trying to fully vet who's invested in you and who feels like they appreciate what you bring to the table. And that's what I always felt from the Arizona Cardinals. When I first went to go work out there, Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach at the time, we had a conversation, and there was such a mutual understanding there because he spent time in Winnipeg in the CFL, the same city that I played in. So we immediately hit it off about that. And I think because of that experience that he had an inherent respect for where I was coming from, because going back to what we were saying earlier, the CFL just doesn't get respect in the NFL, although it is extremely high football and it's hard to win championships up there. So I felt like he had a mutual respect for me, and obviously gave me opportunities to get on the field, and I was able to take advantage and stick around and carve out a 4-year career in the NFL, which a lot of people might not seem like much, but as an undrafted guy coming from the CFL, it's not the easiest thing to do. So definitely proud of where I was able to go, and thankful for the opportunities that I was given, because it doesn't happen alone.
Yeah, it's something that definitely does take both the hard work and preparation, and also takes a little bit of that preparation meeting the right time in the right place, which I think that's part of where the NFL is such a cool league, because it really does shred down to kind of the bare bones of who you're going to be as a person and a player. There's guys who come out there who have been incredible athletes who've dominated at every single level that just get destroyed at the next level. And there's small stories, at least like yours or other guys who are undrafted guys who got every single thing stacked up against them, that are able to go out there and be able to make a living, which is one of the coolest aspects, I think, of the storytelling that goes into why people love this league so much, despite the fact that there's so little that we seems like we get. Like, it's 17 weeks of the year and then it's done. It's just so unique, at least, but it puts a toll on that, and a toll on your body, which I know that was one of the things that happened this past year, was he officially retired from football. Part of that was just because of some of the wear and tear that happens, that I think a lot of times we don't realize the toll it takes on someone's body, at least, that it is just to stay in football shape.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there, but I think at the end of the day, you hit it on the head. Takes a toll on you physically, mentally, emotionally, and you talk about guys who aren't able to make it and are given opportunities, and guys that are able to make it that aren't put in the most opportune positions. I think a lot of it comes down to how you manage that stress of the mental aspect of playing in the NFL and what that requires of you, and the day-to-day competition and the constant evaluation. And it's a lot. And if you don't have a way to manage that stress, it can become overwhelming. And if you struggle and there's expectations, then there's other feelings that start to build up. And there's a lot that goes into it for people that don't understand what it's like being in that position. So I always tell the young kids that I coach, because I coach quarterbacks out here in Arizona as well, I always tell them, as you get to higher and higher levels, you're going to find out two things. Everyone's good. And then because of that, the mental aspect of things becomes even more important. You're going to get to college. You're going to go Division I. Maybe you become a professional. You're going to realize everyone can throw the football. Okay, what separates guys? Yeah, there's some guys out there that are just freaks of nature that have more talent. That there's Lamar Jacksons. There's guys like that that are just gifted. But a lot of the times it comes down to who processes the best, who handles stress, who can learn the playbook, who can make great decisions and handle failure the right way. So I preach that to kids all the time. And if you talk about the physical aspect of things, that was a big piece of the puzzle for me that played into retiring this year. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter at home, and I've got a fiance, and I own a house out here in Arizona, and I'm interested in other things outside of playing football. So when you tear your ACL 2 years in a row, and you do your MCL, PCL, both meniscus, cartilage damage, the whole 9 yards, you start to look in the mirror and say, okay, what's the rest of my life going to look like? Is it going to be worth it to play another year or two with the potential damage I already have? Or do I want to try to transition and figure out a way to apply my knowledge and energy for the game in another way that doesn't require me to break down my body? And that's why I'm going into media. That's why I'm going into broadcasting, doing content, because I have a unique perspective. I have a lot of knowledge of this game and a lot of unique experiences that I think need to be shared and can benefit the game if I do that.
Yeah, for sure. I think also part of it too is you played the game the right way, which is how physical you were able to play the game is part of the beauty of the sport. But like we said, it does have one of those areas of taking a toll. Let's shift to talking a little bit about with the Cardinals themselves, because that's one of the things that we're focusing on here. You spent time on the roster with Kyler Murray. The biggest news of the Cardinals offseason, he gets released, goes to Minnesota. How do you think that he's going to do up there with the Vikings?
I'm excited for Kyler. Just look at the Vikings and what they've been able to do in allowing guys to have a resurgence of their career. Look at Sam Darnold. Look at Daniel Jones. People forget he was there for a second. I mean, look at these guys that have gone through there. And I think there's a trend, and that doesn't happen by accident. I think a lot of people that are fans of the NFL and that follow the NFL forget the impact that coaching has on a guy, specifically a quarterback. And I think that Minnesota has done a great job. Kevin O'Connell and those guys that they have there. I think Josh McCown is their quarterback coach. The way that they've been able to help coach guys and help them get their confidence back and get back. I don't know if confidence was ever an issue for Kyler, but to be able to get in a new environment, get in a fresh environment, and learn how someone else sees the game and learn how to process and go through things like that. I think it's going to be great for him. And the team they have around him is a pretty strong team. Now, that's a very competitive division in the NFC North, probably the best in football right now. NFC West, you could probably make a conversation about that too. But it's going to be a competitive division. He's surrounded by good players, so you don't have to be Superman all the time. You just need to take care of the football, make your plays when they're there, and I think he's going to have the right coaching and playmakers around him to have some success when he gets his opportunity.
Yeah, I think a lot of Cardinals fans could be upset because you always feel different when guys leave to go to different teams and end up having success. But I do agree that I think Kyler could be in for an awesome year in Minnesota. With the Cardinals themselves, at least, they hired a new head coach in Mike LaFleur, which I was very excited when the Cardinals hired Mike LaFleur. I felt like he got the short end of the stick in New York, had shown a lot in his time, especially in a couple of games play calling with the Rams underneath Sean McVay. What's some of that we can expect from his offense this year? And also, what can we expect from the man himself?
Who's the man himself?
Mike LaFleur.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm excited to see his offense. I mean, I played for him in New York, so I'm very familiar with Coach LaFleur, and we messaged a little bit when he got the job, just telling him how excited I am for him. Look, I think where his offense is really awesome is it's another iteration of this West Coast offense that everyone talks about, and obviously, his brother out in Green Bay, but then also going out to LA and getting to learn under McVay's system and incorporating some of the things that he does in his offense. You've seen so many guys that have come from underneath McVay and come from that tree, so to speak, and have gone on to have a lot of success. So I love that about him. I think his offense is going to be dynamic. And I think one thing about him is he's going to do a great job of getting his playmakers in positions to make plays. That's something he always talked about when he was in New York, and something that I think he's going to do a good job of doing in Arizona. And when you look at that offense, and especially the skill positions, there's a lot of guys who can make plays. So I'm sure he's very excited to get to work with those guys in camp and start to put that puzzle together of how it's all going to fit. And then, if I could just speak to him as a guy, just a real person. And what I mean by that is so many times you meet football coaches that are just football robots, if you will, and they can't turn it off, and it's hard to have a conversation with them. I always just felt like he was a real person, and you could have a conversation with him. You could talk about stuff outside of football. And as a quarterback, like, that always meant a lot to me. And it was always fun to be in the room with him because we'd have a lot of great football conversations and a lot of great back and forth, but then we could also chop it up and BS about life, which I think is important when it comes to a quarterback room and balance with the team. So I'm excited to see him take the reins and lead that team. And I think the future, to be quite honest with you, I think the future is really bright for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think one of the areas, like you talk about with this West Coast offense, there's been copycats that have popped up from the McVay, from some of the other places. When it comes to these timing-based offenses and rhythms, what's kind of the biggest separator as a quarterback from that sort of offense from maybe other offenses that you've been in the past?
Yeah, well, there's a big difference between what I did with Cliff in Arizona and what I did with Mike McDaniel and Nathaniel Hackett and LaFleur in New York. Now, this West Coast term has just gotten so bastardized to use the term, right? Like, yeah. There's everyone's West Coast. Well, LaFleur's West Coast is different than Hackett's, but they do kind of come from a similar tree. And when I got with Hackett and he was in New York, it was like very true West Coast. Like, his dad, Paul Hackett, was with Bill Walsh in San Francisco when they came up with the West Coast offense. So it was rhythm of your drops, timing. Here's the steps. This is the steps. This is the drops on this play. On this play, you're here to here to here. And if you're not here on your second hit, you're wrong. Doesn't matter. And that's how it was coached. And I love that, just because you started to develop the timing of where guys need to be in rhythm. It helps you understand, okay, I can move on at this pace. I know where guys need to be. And that's where the West Coast offense is great, because it just allows you to develop timing and spacing with guys. So it's exciting to see how they're going to incorporate that with the Cardinals and play to their guys' strengths and put themselves in positions to be successful. And then when you incorporate some of the different personnels that McVay's doing out in LA and different splits and the way that they use their zone game and their boot game and incorporating that, I think it's going to be pretty dynamic and exciting to watch.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. Now, with the biggest thing that the Cardinals have at least that they're dealing with right now, is figuring out who that quarterback is going to be is one of those areas, because obviously as a quarterback, you know that there's going to be everything from potential injuries to guys who are going to be looking to get paid to, it's always just the most intriguing position in the NFL. Cardinals right now are in a situation where Jacoby Brissett has been holding out looking for more money after playing 12 games last season. I think everyone can agree that he deserves a pay raise. He's making at the lower end as far as being a starter. Cardinals essentially declared that he was a starter, put a big picture of him up in the wall in the media room. So you're talking about also the guy who basically went out last year after Kyler got injured and earned that way of being the starting quarterback for at least the start of this year. Cardinals then also went out, brought in a journeyman quarterback who's bounced around to a couple of teams, kind of like you did in Gardner Minshew, who actually has had some starting experience. And they go out in the third round and draft Carson Beck. Now, we can't go without talking about Keaton Slovis at least as well, because with one of those guys on the edge or on the bubble of the roster, he counts as well. The question, of course, is how do you think this all plays out, starting with Jacoby Brissett? Is he and the Cardinals going to be able to find a deal to work things out, or is this kind of a marriage that is a little bit on the rocks?
No, I mean, they're going to be able to find a deal. Like, I understand where he's coming from, and you played all those games last year and you're coming in as the week 1 starter. Okay, I need to be compensated as such. I'm sure they'll come to a deal. He reported a mandatory minicamp, right? So he did report to mandatory minicamp, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
and,
he reported that, and so I mean, he's going to be the guy. But look, you look at a guy like Gardner Minshew. He's come in and provided a spark throughout his career. A guy that can definitely be serviceable if we get to that point. And I think there's a lot of intrigue around Carson Beck right now and what he could be. A guy that at one point in his college career was projected to be a first-round pick and has had a lot of experience. He's played a lot of games in college, which, to go off on a quick tangent, I think that's one of the benefits of this NIL era is you're seeing guys stay in college longer, get more experience, and come out and be ready as professionals. So he's a guy that I'm very intrigued to see when and if he gets his opportunity. And then seeing how all that shakes out this year. And okay, when the dust settles at the end of the year, we all know what the quarterback class next year is looking like, and just kind of planning ahead of, okay, what do we have now? What's next year looking? And I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I think, again, you've got 3 guys and Keaton Slovis as well, which I never want to discount the 4th guy on the roster, because I was that 4th guy on the roster with the New York Jets, and I ended up finding my way on the field. So I hope he gets opportunities in the preseason to go out and play and make himself some money. But you got a bunch of guys on the roster that it's going to be great to see what they can do, and then see where you're at next year when draft time comes around.
For sure. Let's talk a little bit with Beck, because he was one Fernando Mendoza away from basically winning a championship, is kind of how it goes. He's the guy that most Cardinals fans are intrigued about. What do you think you'd have to see from Beck this year? As being a rookie in the NFL, it's always going to be an uphill battle that you're going to have to climb. What do you think that he'd have to show to kind of be the guy for maybe that 2027 year for the Cardinals this year?
I mean, you just got to take it one day at a time. Like, we're talking about him being the guy for 2027 already. Like, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I think you just take it one day at a time and just try to adapt to the game as quickly as possible, learn the offense, and just prepare like a starter, even when you're not playing. So, when he gets his opportunity, just go out and show that you can handle the game and manage the game. And don't just try not to make the big mistakes and just make the plays that are there. And again, knowing LaFleur and Hackett, they're going to put him in a position to be successful, and they're going to be able to turn up the volume and turn down the volume on how much they're going to put on his plate. And I'm sure they'll keep it simple at first and show that, okay, you can handle this. We'll continue to put more on your plate. So, whenever he gets his opportunity, I'm sure he's going to be ready to go. And again, just taking care of the ball, managing the game, and doing what that's winning football at the end of the day as a quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. Cardinals' other big offseason move, they go out and draft Jeremiah Love, a very surprisingly controversial call. I mean, I'm one of those guys who says be great to draft great players. He's one of, if not the best player in college football last year, outside of the obvious Heisman winner. What are some of the top running backs that you either played with or have watched? And then what kind of are some of those expectations? I know you spent some time with Breece Hall as a rookie back over in New York. He's been one of the top running backs in the NFL. What are kind of the expectations for this new weapon that the Cardinals have taken at number 3 overall as a rookie?
Yeah, I'm expecting them to put him in a lot of positions to get the ball in space, whether that's early in his career. Hey, let's give him a couple bubbles. Let's give him a couple screens. Let's go and empty and let's try to get the ball in his hands and get him rolling. They've got a lot of good running backs. So they've really got three guys that are starter worthy, right? With Algier and James Conner and Jeremiah Love. Like, those are three great guys. So I've got to assume they're going to have some two back sets as well, where you're able to kind of go split backs in the gun and move guys around and do some motions and different things. So they're going to be able to get creative with ways to get him the ball in space and just kind of work him in, feeling comfortable with the ball in his hands and just adapting to that game. He's a heck of a playmaker. He's got the ability to take it to the house no matter where he's at on the field. It's going to be exciting to see him play. And in terms of me, some of the best running backs I've been around, yeah, I mean, talk about Breece Hall. He's rolling out in New York, got a nice little contract. James Conner was doing really well in Arizona when I was there, and just an all-time teammate, great guy. You talk about Raheem Mostert in Miami when I was there. He was about to have his record-breaking season. So been around a few really talented players, but Jeremiah Love has a really special skill set, and I'm excited to see how it translates to Sundays.
I think that's one of the biggest things Cardinals fans are looking forward to, because when you look at how the national media has projected the Cardinals, they're not projected to have a whole bunch of wins this year, which is just, that's kind of the nature of, there's ebbs and flows to how the league goes. Some talent will flow different ways. One of the things when it comes to talent that a lot of people are watching is, you've gotten Trey McBride, one of the top tight ends, if not the top tight end in the league. A lot of eyes are on Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. this year. Obviously, some of those guys are receivers. They're kind of Marvin is almost the opposite, I would say, of kind of the path that you took to the NFL, like son of an all-time Hall of Famer, 5-star recruit, tore it up in college, and then just not really has hit his stride when it comes to the NFL. Meanwhile, another guy in Michael Wilson, 3rd-round pick, goes and fights through injury, kind of has to have an uphill battle, finally is kind of able to have his breakout season and just having that desire to just, this is my ball, I'm going to go up and get it. What do you see as far as with some of what Marvin can do, at least to be able to kind of live up to some of those expectations that a lot of Cardinals fans have had since they took him with a top 5 pick 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think he's going to be able to live up to expectations. I think we live in a world nowadays where we put so much pressure on these young guys to come in and be stars immediately, because we've seen it so many times. But at the end of the day, there's a growing process of being in the NFL and living up to expectations. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that and learning how to handle that. So again, I think their coaches are going to be able to put him in a position to be successful, get the ball in his hands and utilize his strengths. He is a very talented player. And I mean, some of the plays are just that he can make are really special. So it's not a matter of talent. It's just a matter of having those right people around you that are going to put you in positions to be successful and believe in you and help build up your confidence so you can be the player that everyone knows that you can be, and that deep down you know that you are.
Yeah, confidence, I think, is one of the biggest things with him. It seems like he came into the league with all the expectations and then just really got hit hard because, as we talked about, the league, it just grinds you down, at least with everything. I do think this year could be a really big special year for Marvin Harrison Jr., especially with being able to have LaFleur and that being a focal point of their offense. Let's switch and talk a little with the defense. They've got some talented pieces. Obviously, Budda Baker has been the Cardinals star, the Cardinals captain. Even since the time that you were there with the Cardinals, he's still there making plays, whether it's in coverage or in the backfield. They got some young guys. They drafted Walter Nolan and Will Johnson last year, but the defense still struggled. They ended up finishing between 29th to 31st. A lot of injuries took place. What's one of the best ways that defense can improve in attacking opposing quarterbacks? Because last year, that seemed like that was the biggest issue with Arizona, was they couldn't get after the passer for the most part, outside of one guy in Josh Sweat. How do you think that defenses, as far as how they attack quarterbacks, and what can the Cardinals do to get after the quarterback better?
Well, I mean, just hearing how their coaches have talked, I think they've taken a really long look at the defense and schematic things that maybe were hurting them. You talk about injuries. I mean, that's always going to be really difficult. So I think they'll do a great job of finding creative ways to pressure the quarterback and utilizing their guys' strengths. Like, that's the whole game of football, is how do you use the guys that you have? So they'll do a good job. They have smart coaches in that building that are going to put their guys in position to be successful and learn from what happened last year and find creative ways to pressure. I know they give a lot of looks defensively and do a lot of unique things, especially with Budda, you talked about, and moving him around. So I'm sure they'll learn from last year and will be able to hopefully stay healthy and keep their guys on the field and put them in position to make plays.
Yeah, the Cardinals played more quarters coverage than almost any team last year. We'll see now that Jonathan Gannon's no longer the head coach if they make adjustments or change, or if it stays similar. Did you have a favorite coverage that you would see, or did it just depend on how teams would be as far as when you would like to attack? Like, are you one of those guys who'd be like, oh, there's cover one. I know I've got a one-on-one matchup over here with the safety that's going to be covering the one side of the field. That means I've got the other. Was there something specifically that you liked, or did it just depend on like the play, how it called, or what matchups you saw?
Yeah, but it always depends on the play. I mean, man's the easiest one, right? You see man, take my matchup. I got a corner. I got to go. I got something like that. So it always simplifies it, but it's all really play-to-play basis based on the whole picture of what you're trying to attack. I think that's more important than me liking a coverage. It's me seeing the coverage that I'm anticipating when we call a play. There's a lot of thought process that goes into that. So I think it's more predicated on that.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense, at least, too, especially because that's probably the more balanced approach you need to attack versus I just like this one coverage. I'm going to attack it every time I see it. That's how they'll get you every single time with how they can bait and be able to disguise coverage so much better at the NFL level than in the college level. Let's talk a little bit with Canadian Football League since it's happening right now. I know you've got a YouTube channel where you've been doing some breakdowns. Cardinals fans, at least, we're always starved for football content. What's some stuff that we can look for right now in the Canadian Football League? Like, what's kind of a flyover of what's happening in the CFL?
Yeah, you're looking at a league that the average quarterback rating right now is like 115. They are playing unbelievable football. They're averaging like, I'm not even kidding, I think it's like 70 points a game. Like, offenses are absolutely rolling. So if you want exciting football, man, you got to tap in. I think there's only 9 teams. So there's 4 games last week. We had multiple 400-yard passers, guys throwing multiple touchdowns. Offenses are just all over the place. A lot of really, really strong receiving cores right now. So if you like wide open football, you like high scoring games and quarterbacks that are going to be able to move the ball up and down the field and take deep shots, then I think it's worth checking out a CFL football game. You can find them on CBS Sports. You can go on CFLplus.com and find stuff. And, you can also check out my YouTube channel. And I'm doing a bunch of breakdowns and going through highlights and talking through, just different schematic things. So I do all that on Instagram, TikTok, and then YouTube. I go a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to plug whatever else you've got here at the present, if there's anything else as far as where we can follow some of the content that you've got that you're plugging out there, and then also some of what you're doing with coaching right now. I know that there's a lot that you're doing as far as with helping pour into the youth of Arizona football right now as well.
Yeah. So I coach quarterbacks. Helped co-found a company out here called Ground Up Quarterback. We've got quite a few Division I guys. We got a bunch of college guys, a lot of high school kids, a few pro guys we work with. So it's been exciting getting to build that up and give back. We also have youth programs as well. So that's been really fun and just an exciting way to share my passion and knowledge of the game. And then in terms of social media, you can find me on Instagram, CStrevy5, TikTok, CStrevy. You go on X, I'm just Chris Streveler. Same with YouTube, Chris Streveler. So, really getting into the content game, and I'll be doing more NFL stuff too when the season rolls around. But for right now, just hammering CFL because that's what's going on. So, it's been exciting, and if you like football content from someone who's played the game at a high level and can get into some of the schematic stuff, it's worth checking out.
That's awesome. Let's end now. We're just about a month away from the Cardinals having their first preseason game. Obviously, we talked about with preseason being so important for development, for quarterbacks, for guys being able to make the roster. Cardinals are going to be retiring. Larry Fitzgerald, his bust is going into the Hall of Fame. He's already been retired at least for a couple of years. This is kind of a huge moment for him in that Hall of Fame game. You got a fun story that we can close with about Larry Fitzgerald and a welcome to the NFL moment that he had with you.
Yeah. So again, plugging my social media. You guys want to go listen to the story? I told it on my Instagram, but essentially, a couple days after final cuts are being made, and my phone never rang, so I kind of realized I made the team, and I go into the facility just to get a little workout in after that, and I was kind of like one of the only guys in there, and Fitz was sitting across the cafeteria from me, and just kind of comes over and is like, "Hey, man, I just want to congratulate you on making this team." And to me, just as an undrafted guy, a guy that started in the CFL, to be number one, even talking to Larry Fitzgerald was pretty cool. But him, coming over to me and taking time out of his day to come congratulate me, it meant a lot. And all the stories you hear about him just being a great teammate and a great guy. That's always been the experience I've had too. And I think he's one of those guys that's just as advertised. So can't say enough about him, and really, really excited for him to be getting in the Hall of Fame. And I think we all knew it was just a matter of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Gotta love Larry Legend. Treats everyone at least like that from what we know about him. So super great to be able to have that sort of experience. That'll wrap it up for our podcast here today. You can follow me in the content on Twitter at BlakeMurphy7, as well as also on social media for the Bleav in Arizona Cardinals podcast. Thank you guys again for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, leave a review. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Chris, thank you again so much for hopping in, being able to talk some football. Really appreciate having you on today.
Thanks, man. Talk soon.
All right. Thanks again, and go Cardinals.